On July 6, 2021, Peter R. de Vries was murdered in cold blood. A journalist with an amazing career who delved too deeply into his investigations, a pursuit that would lead to his inevitable death. So today we're going to talk about Peter R. de Vries, his life, his career, and how it ultimately led to his demise. Peter came from a rather simple and perhaps somewhat strict family. Born on November 14, 1956, in Aalsmeer, the Netherlands, he grew up in a family of 6 children. His father, Wouter de Vries, ran a gunpowder factory called Muiden Chemie. Despite his rather strict upbringing, Peter never showed the slightest interest in the church and led a non-religious life from an early age. During his youth in Amstelveen, Peter became involved in criminal activities such as shoplifting, school vandalism, and various thefts. His crimes, if you can call them that, included stealing cartons from the back of supermarkets and exchanging them for cash, as well as stealing money from the family purse. After completing his secondary education in Amsterdam Buitenveldert, Peter served in the Royal Netherlands Army from 1976 to 1977, reaching the rank of sergeant. During this time, he was also a member of the General Association of the Dutch Military, AVN. Peter R. de Vries began his journalistic career in 1978 as a reporter for De Telegraaf newspaper in The Hague, later moving to Amsterdam. Initially focusing on general journalism, he soon specialized in crime reporting, covering prominent criminal cases in the Netherlands. In 1987, he left De Telegraaf to become editor-in-chief of the weekly magazine Actueel, which he transformed into a publication focused on criminal issues. At some point in his life, which he kept quite secret and discreet, perhaps to protect his family, he married an unidentified woman to whom he remained married for 35 years until 2013, when the couple decided to go their separate ways and divorced. From 2015 until his death, he maintained a discreet relationship with Tamina Akifai, an Afghan-Dutch writer and journalist. After graduating as a journalist in '78, he would begin his career, although it wasn't until 1991 that he would take the path of becoming a crime specialist, beginning a wave of work dedicated to always seeking the truth above all else, delving into a world full of crimes. One of his first significant works was the case of Crystal Ambrosius, a 23-year-old who was brutally raped and then murdered in her grandmother's house. In 2002, thanks to de Vries and others, the perpetrator was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Although the case later involved new people, de Vries was instrumental in advancing the investigation. Just 1 year later, in 2003, after the controversy that had shaken the entire country about the alleged friendship between Princess Wis Smit and drug dealer Klaas Boomsma in the 90s, of course, any connection between the two was completely denied. But as there is always a but, de Vries did not want to stand idly by. In October of the same year, he interviewed Charlie de Silva, a former bodyguard of Boomsma, on a television program and stated that Wis Smit and Boomsma were not only friends but also had an affair. This statement was denied countless times, but the news was already public. And that brings us to 2006. When de Vries got into legal trouble while trying to expose questionable behavior by a police officer in inheritance cases involving elderly women. This intense period of his life led to his arrest and charges of trespassing, although the case was eventually dismissed in 2007. He then decided to delve into the events surrounding the late President John F. Kennedy in 1963. Producing a revealing special in which he interviewed former CIA and FBI agents. The interviews, especially the shocking testimony of James Files, who claimed to be the shooter, challenged the findings of the Warren Commission and pointed to possible conspiracies involving the CIA and the Mafia. De Vries has not hesitated to take on notorious disappearance cases, such as that of Natalie Holloway. In 2006, he indicted Joran van der Sloot, one of the main suspects, in a program that included intense moments, such as van der Sloot throwing a glass of red wine during a live interview. The Natalie Holloway saga continued in 2008 with an undercover video in which van der Sloot allegedly admitted to being present at Holloway's death. Despite the recorded confession, the evidence was deemed insufficient for a new arrest. Not to mention that in addition to all of this, he also made another accusation against Van de Sloot that year, something to do with the sex trafficking of Thai women in Bangkok. He claimed that Van der Sloot was making money by selling women for prostitution in the Netherlands and presented undercover pictures of the alleged trafficker. Years later, in 2010, De Vries decided to travel to Western Australia to look into the case of diving instructor Daniel Ian Ross, who was wanted for the death of Dutch tourist Mariska Esmeralda Mast. This trip led to his arrest after attempting to interview Ross and paying a fine for disobeying a police order. The journalist also participated in documentary work, such as accompanying Beth Holloway to the Peruvian prison where Joran van der Sloot was being held. The trip included controversy over the presence of hidden cameras, but De Vries continued his journalistic commitment. Although he ventured into politics by founding a party in 2005, his plans changed after a public opinion poll, leading him to dissolve the party, proving that his true domain was journalism. In 2017, De Vries founded a legal and investigative firm with criminal lawyer Khalid Qasim. Although not a lawyer, he took on the role of director and dedicated himself to providing advice and expertise, closing a remarkable chapter in his journalistic career. The life of Peter R. De Vries is a bold narrative about a person who never feared authority, royalty, or any related entity. At 7:29 p.m. on July 6, 2021, a Tuesday, the Alarm Network would broadcast an emergency signal about a shooting in the heart of Amsterdam. The Netherlands would receive news that would leave them in shock: the brutal murder of one of the most prominent figures in the Dutch media, Peter R. De Vries, a journalist and advocate for justice. The attack took place in broad daylight in the center of Amsterdam and revealed a chilling link to organized crime. But how did it happen? As De Vries left his studio, he was approached by a gunman linked to a drug trafficking network. 5 shots rang out in the narrow shopping street, leaving the journalist wounded and fighting for his life. But the police response was swift. Less than an hour after the shooting, 2 suspects, Delano Geerman, a 21-year-old Dutchman, and Camille E., a 35-year-old Pole, were arrested about 30 miles from the scene. Subsequent investigation revealed something more sinister: text messages indicating that an unidentified man had sent them pictures of De Vries with instructions to get that dog. They responded with video clips showing their weapons, a modified pistol, and a submachine gun. Complicating matters was the revelation that De Vries had been under surveillance for about 2 weeks prior to the attack. The suspects, apparently acting on behalf of a criminal organization, studied his movements from his studio to the parking lot where he left his car. The meticulous planning suggests a deeper and darker connection behind the murder. While De Vries fought for his life in the hospital, receiving significant support and solidarity from the citizens, some fellow journalists, friends, and anonymous individuals expressed their support, evidenced by a bed of flowers on the street where he fell. However, hope faded when, on July 15, 2021, Peter R. De Vries passed away at the age of 64. This leads us to the discovery that Ridwan Taghi could be one of the minds behind his murder, although he was in prison during those years and denied any connection to the case. But it was difficult to deny. Subsequent investigations and a key witness, known as Eddie, provided details about the planning and execution of the murder. Christian, a man linked to the uncle, hired Camille and Delano to carry out the task for a not insignificant sum of 150,000 euros. The police, following the leads provided by Eddie, arrested several suspects, including Eriksson and Jeroen, who played crucial roles in observing and recording De Vries before and after the attack. The case becomes even more complicated with the involvement of a Polish Dutch criminal group known as the 26 Wolves, whose leader, Jordan van der. Yes, it was very likely that Van der Sloot was involved in this. The thing is, the legal process is still ongoing, and a trial is expected at the end of 2023, maintaining national and international attention. The connection between organized crime and the murder of a justice advocate like Peter R. De Vries highlights the extreme complexity of the fight against crime and the need to address not only violent acts, but also the underlying criminal networks that perpetuate them. This dark chapter in Dutch history underscores the importance of freedom of expression and the courage of those who defend it, even at the risk of their own lives. While the Netherlands awaits the resolution of this case, the shadow of Peter R. de Vries' murder continues to loom over society, reminding us of the fragility of freedom and the persistence of organized crime. The quest for justice persists, not only in memory of de Vries, but also in defense of the fundamental values he represented. Peter was someone who was admired, loved, and hated at the same time, with such a prominent career and extensive work. Now all that's left is to understand who this man was and why he was so important. That's it. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. See you next time.